And I'd like to resume the regular meeting of council for March the 14th, 2016. Looking for approval of our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Public participation time. It is the opportunity of folks in the audience to come up and say something. Microphone should be on. I see the little red light. Name and address and come ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ben Mycroft with GWL Realty Advisors, Project Director for Royal Bay. And I'm here tonight to address item 6.3.2 in your agenda package, which is an application for 4 signs in the municipally owned road right-of-way. This was an item that came through the Transportation and Public Infrastructure Committee on March 7th. I apologize for not being able to make that meeting. I was unfortunately on vacation and my backup also couldn't make it, so sorry about that. I feel like if I had been there, I would have had a better opportunity to address the committee and perhaps convince or at least elaborate on some of the features and benefits of the signs as we provide for them. So I'd just like to take a brief moment now to do so. These are 4 signs. They're intended to be identification markers that really kind of let you know when you arrive at Royal Bay, welcome to Royal Bay, seaside community, and then as you're leaving, thank you for visiting Royal Bay, and in the corner, the city of Colwood logo, which on consultation with staff, we agreed was a good idea, because there is some misconception in the community, not widely held perhaps, but I've had some comments saying, oh, isn't that project that would have been chosen? So we're looking at these not as advertising signs. They're really intended to be kind of tasteful, understated identity markers that just let you know. They help with a sense of arrival and a sense of place for Royal Bay, and they're intended to be kind of a very non-offensive. And we are requesting that we had a request for as long as 10 years. I understand that perhaps there's no way to facilitate that length of time. So we're of course going to work with what council can provide. But we are asking to consider approving these signs in the road right away tonight on the reasons that I described. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Last and final call, seeing for any other members of the public in public participation. We shall move on. Next on the agenda is Mayor's message, and I think everybody at council received the information that for the 3rd year running, Colwood, due to secret weapons that we have firmly in place and associated with John Stubbs School, we were able to pull off the annual flower count again. And so that's 3 years in a row now running that we've managed to do that. And it's a fun event that we participate in with good hearty laughter. 6.7 billion was the number counted by the school.
I like to question that number, please.
Hey, 25 billion, almost 26 over the course of the region. So Deep Cove came in, their grade 4 or 5 class came in at 4.7 billion. So it's a fun time to be had. We don't know.
Wow.
Billions and billions. Did you count your backyard?
Those kids are counting like you wouldn't believe.
They are. Anyways, a thank you for them for participating in the fun. It was a week long of running around in the city. Anybody else from council with anything that's going on?
You can't top that.
Yeah, there you go.
6.7 billion.
We
Top that bloom.
we do have Bike to Work coming up next month, though, folks, so stay tuned for more information. Councillor Chong will be representing the City of Colwood in that event as well. So thank you, Loha. Next step, adoption of minutes for the regular meeting of council February 22nd and the public hearing February 10th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Looking to receive Cycling Advisory Committee minutes for February 1st, Parks and Rec Minutes for January 27th. Special Committee of the Whole Budget Meeting for February 15th. Protective Services, January 20th. Transportation and Public Infrastructure Committee minutes on February 1. Special Transportation and Public Infrastructure, February 23rd. And a report of the public hearing, bylaw number 1598, that was held February the 10th.
Move receipt.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Correspondence requiring council direction. Perhaps we have that number before us. First one, 5.1, is a letter from Laura Davis, President of the West Shore Arts Council, a request letter of support for their community gaming grant application. We have supported in the past. Council, what is your wish?
I'll move the staff recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
Sorry.
All those in favor? Oh,
Sorry,
yes?
one question. Sorry, I'm looking for the recommendation.
It's written on the agenda under that particular correspondence item. So
Oh, right
we'll
there.
see
Okay,
right
thank
there.
you. Yep, okay.
We're good? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5.2, capital, no, wait, yes. Yep, 5.2, Capital Regional District Proposed Transportation Service Establishment. Ian, you going to take that one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This has come to the agenda through just correspondence that we've received from the regional district. This isn't a referral at this point. It's very early in the process, but staff are receiving inquiries about this, and we felt that it was important for council to make a decision early and get the message back to the CRD fairly early in the process.
Any questions from council? There's a, Councillor Day?
Thank you. Just kind of formulate my thoughts here, but there was consideration. I think what I heard around the CRD table was a desire to improve transportation services within the region, and I think that's commendable. We all would like to have better transportation services, but I am not of the opinion that having the CRD create essentially another level of government would do that, and that would be in line with what staff have identified in their report as well.
Anyone else? I need a recommendation and a seconder.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to move the recommendation that we strongly eject.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Councillor Nault?
I strongly agree with the recommendation. The CRD, we're already in a parks acquisition service. We haven't seen a park bought in Colwood yet, not a penny spent. They're doing such a wonderful job on sewage treatment that I really hesitate to throw transportation into the CRD mill as well. So I strongly support improvements in regional transportation and especially communication between municipalities on how that's handled, but I certainly do not want to see that as a CRD function.
Your Worship, just one suggestion. I think this might be a good topic for the next regional mayors meeting. It might be an appropriate mayor's task force to be, address the same issue without it being a function within the region.
Thank you. Anyone else? Call the question. All those in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? Motion carries. 5.3, letter from Corporation of District of Central Saanich regarding Take the Pledge for Parity. I do realize that the initial piece was to recognize March the 8th, which we did not receive in time to deal with, but there is, if you had gone to their website, an opportunity for further involvement with that. So again, we have a bit of a recommendation.
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Second.
Any further conversation? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 5.4, open letter on climate change to British Columbia municipalities on accelerating the electrification of transportation sector. There's a recommendation before. Councillor Day?
I'd be happy to move the recommendation.
Seconder?
Second.
Conversation, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 5.5, letter from District of Metchosin, Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities 2016 resolution in regards to protecting old growth forests. It is a letter looking for endorsement for this going towards ABICC.
I would move endorsement.
Can't open it up. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, sorry,
Yep.
just give me a moment. I'm just looking for the,
5.5?
I'm just looking for the recommendation.
It's a letter,
It's
just,
in
yeah,
here?
yeah.
Okay. Oh, that'd be a result, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Email correspondence in regards to governance of integrated policing units in the CRD. Recommendation is to participate and to name the group Capital Region Municipalities Police Group.
I'll move
Councillor
that
Day?
recommendation.
Conversation, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Concluding section 5, moving into new business, section 6. 6.1, Committee of the Whole Budget Meeting. Councillor Trace excused herself from our meeting this evening. She is under the weather, so do we have somebody leading this one, Councillor Day?
I could speak to this. At our budget review, the fire department identified the need to make plans for retirement of a position of our firefighter mechanic, and the committee recommended, and I would so move, that the fire chief be permitted to make preparations to hire a replacement for the position of firefighter mechanic starting June 1st.
Discussion? Councillor Knoll?
Much as I hate to approve budget expenditures before the budget is finally approved, this is one where we have to do hiring, so we get some overlap between the existing mechanic and the new mechanic. It's very important to maintain continuity, so I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 6.1.2.
Madam Mayor?
I was just going to do that.
Okay.
Councillor Rob Martin, you sit on the library. And you also, the following item is West Shore Parks and Rec, so I will be excluding you from that one as well for conflict of interest. And Councillor Chong, you will excuse yourself when we get to the West Shore Parks and Rec. Thank you. So going back now to the Greater Victoria Public Library 2016 budget recommendation. Councillor, who's taking that one?
I don't know if it's me, but I'll jump in there anyways. The library brought forward their 2016 final operating budget increase at 2.9%, which net of transfers results in a municipal contribution increase of 3.21%, which Colwood's share of the requisition based on assessment values and population is $762,987. And we are also responsible for a prorated contribution to the Building Reserve Fund of $26,611. And the budget drivers were wages and benefits increases, declining fine revenues, and a strong demand for library services. And some budget savers were innovation and resourcefulness. They're sharing existing staff amongst branches, for example, and collaboration on using buying consortiums and to acquire grants, and alternative sources of revenue for innovative projects, including some United Way funding, the Times Colonist Raise a Reader grant, and so it was recommended to council, and I would so move that the committee that the Greater Victoria Public Library 2016 budget requisition request of $762,987 be approved, and in addition, approval of a $26,611 contribution to the building reserve for a total amount of $789,598.
Seconder, please.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Chung. Moving on to 6.1.3. This is recommendation arising from budget discussions for the West Shore Parks and Recreation Society 2016.
Madam Mayor, do you want me to take this one?
Might as well. Thank you.
Okay. So I don't have a whole lot of preamble to give you, but the recommendation was, and I would so move, that the committee support West Shore Parks and Recreation Society budget requisition of $1,110,007.
Discussion? Again, these last two items, folks, just, it is important when we have business within our business, so to speak, that have different timelines in their operating budgets. And so it's important to recognize and try and facilitate the best we can. Our council budget or city budget doesn't actually meet its final approvals until mid-May, which leaves folks stretched in the overall operations there. So it is often a hard decision is to get around those budget numbers, but I think council's done a really good job on getting there. We have a sense of where we are with everything moving forward. So to do these so-called early approvals is of little consequence overall to the budget. So, Councillor Day.
Sorry, there's just
You found a bit more.
No, there's a slight typo in the recommendation. It should be $1,110,077, and that is in the report referred from the Committee of the Whole budget. The Acting Director of Finance just pointed that out to me, so we would want to adjust the motion.
So it's
I will find
it's
it.
77 instead of 007.
Yes.
Okay.
Instead of 007, it's 077.
So that's an amended. Seconder, will you take that as an amendment? We're good. All right. Any further comments?
Just, I was going to point out that there is in our package the budget highlights, which were presented to Committee of the Whole. Their total operating budget is about 10.6% higher than 2015, and most of their areas are showing expanded growth, so more users means more cost. And they had some great statistics, and I was just looking for them. I know that our recreation users pay about half of the costs of running the services, which is fairly unusual. Most recreation centers pay something like 70%. So we're getting very good value for our services. And if I could find the exact numbers, I would tell you. But I can't.
Good, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Somebody want to grab our 2? Thank you. And we will move into Planning and Land Use Committee 6.2.1, recommendation DVP application number 16001 for 3338 Anchorage Avenue. Councillor Logan, are you going to be?
I will. Thank you, Worship. In this application, the applicant is requesting to vary section 2.1.06.2B of the Land Use Bylaw number 151, increasing the maximum floor area of an accessory building from 60 square meters to 80 square meters. in order to permit the construction of an 80 square meter detached accessory garage in the rear yard of the existing single-family dwelling. It was a pretty straightforward application. There was absolutely no objection to the application, considering the applicants were the only two in the audience. So it was recommended by committee, and I so move that the development variance permit number DVP-16-001 be authorized for issuance, which would have the effect of varying the maximum floor area for an accessory building pursuant to section 2.1.06.2 subsection B of the land use bylaw number 151 from 60 square meters to 80 square meters on the property described as lot 7, etc.
Seconder? Second. Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6.2.2 regarding street names for phases 1A and 1B of Royal Bay Development.
Thank you, Your Worship. The city has received a request to assign names to the first two phases, the roads in the first two phases of the Royal Bay development. The subdivision has been recently registered, and the roads have been dedicated to the city, so now it's time to name the streets. The proposed street names meet the guidelines found in the council policy regarding street names, and the procedure has been followed as normal, except we're bringing it straight to council because time is of the essence now that the subdivision has been registered, and it's crucial for the first responders to have permanent names assigned as soon as possible. The applicant has chosen the theme of birds. The proposed bird names are species that are native to the Esquimalt Lagoon, and the theme is proposed for the entire Latoya North neighborhood area. The roads that are shown in the staff report include Osprey Street, Caspian Drive, Kestrel Street, and Sparrowhawk Avenue. We're also including Ryder Hedgehall Way in the bylaw because the Local Government Act requires that the finalization of the road name happen by bylaw. Therefore, staff recommend that council proceed with enactment of bylaw number 1611, cited as City of Colwood Highway naming bylaw number 1611 for Royal Bay phases 1A and 1B 2016 at the appropriate time in the council meeting agenda. Thank you.
So moved.
Second. Discussion, council? Councilor Martin?
Thank you. Through the chair to planning, can you just tell me, this is more of a general question, I'm just trying to understand the difference between street drives and avenues. I understand that street and avenues are normally cross-section, but there's a drive in there, and I'm just wondering if there's a definition of what a drive is versus a road versus a street versus a avenue, just in general.
If the Director of Engineering wants to jump in, my 2 cents is that some municipalities choose a designator to define whether the thoroughfare is traveling in a direction or not. I know there's some municipalities of a north-south corridor, it will be street, and then east-west will be boulevard. That we're not taking that approach with this development. Probably the biggest reason it's not a classic gridiron layout. There's quite a few roads that curve throughout the site. So,
Just a follow-up. So, and again, I'm sorry, I'm not being specific to this thing, but in Colwood, do we have a definition of how you would name something a street versus you would name it an avenue versus you would name it a drive? So it's just up to the developer when they want to call it whatever?
I'm not aware of any policy or convention in terms of the designator. Yeah.
Anyone else? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 6.2.3, Councillor Logan, planning and development application fee review. I think we're going to staff on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our current development application fees were established in 1998 as part of a land use application bylaw. Since that time, there have not been any increases in application fees. In 2012, Council endorsed an increase in the development application fees which was followed by a consultation process undertaken by staff. This included an online survey and a consultation session undertaken in 2013 with representatives of the development community. Flowing from that consultation, staff are recommending fee increases be implemented based on the length of time since the fees were initiated and the need to more fully achieve cost recovery in terms of the staff time allotted to the processing of development applications. The fee increases that are being recommended are considered to be within the range charged by other municipalities in the Capital Regional District. In addition, staff are recommending that the fees be reviewed every 5 years. Thank you.
Councillor Day?
Thanks. I just have a question, and I am on page, the bottom of page 4 and the top of page 5 of the report about the recommended increase to the application fees for agricultural, residential, rural, or residential would be revised from $3,400 plus 50 cents a square meter of lot area to $3,400 plus 20 cents a square meter of lot area up to 5,000 square meters, and then 10 cents a square meter for the portion of the lot area greater than 5,000 square meters. Now it says this revision is in response to the development industry stakeholder session held in 2013. When I read the comments from the developers, I believe the comments were to keep the costs low enough for that we still encourage small infill developments to take place. But it seems like this fee arrangement of reducing the rate the larger the project is would favor larger developments. And I would just wonder if you could explain that.
Our intention with this was to try to honor the legal requirements of this bylaw, that we're not collecting more than what the costs are for the services we're providing in terms of the staff time and whatnot expended. And we're acknowledging that with a big project, there's certain things that are going to happen regardless of the size of the project. And, you know, the staff report is going to be written whether it's a 1 acre or a 10 acre site. So we see some costs implicit in the application regardless of its size. And when you get to a really large site, say for instance Royal Bay, the areas involved could mean that the fees could be far greater than what potentially could be represented by the cost of the municipality. So that's the thinking behind that breakdown.
Good. Councillor Logan?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to staff. I could be shot down in flames, but you know, I'm wondering, just thinking outside the box here and looking at economic development and keeping our eye kind of on the proverbial prize, which would include quality, high-density commercial development, which would in turn benefit the city taxpayer. So could we utilize fees as a tool to encourage commercial or higher density growth in target areas, whether that would be, as an example, in those targeted areas, a reduction in fees, as an example, or a refund of fees should the project get built. And while there might be a short-term disadvantage for the city in terms of revenue, long-term, the city makes that revenue back in spades by charging commercial property taxes, or even you know, a higher density residential development, whether it be a 4, 6, 8, 10-story building that requires less city resources to service. You know, that would be a means of encouraging the development at Colwo Corner, the commercial node in Royal Bay, maybe a little quicker. Back here, you know, just a thought, and I'm not sure if that is something that is legally permitted, but
Your Worship. Sorry if I could jump in on this one.
Coming from the left.
I think planning fees in particular are such a small percentage of the project costs that I think it may have a symbolic gesture to the developer, but I'm not sure it would really have an impact that would incent or disincent them to take on a project in Colwood. There's so many other factors that would determine that. If there was an intent to incent them financially, efforts such as the property tax exemption that you did with the hotel is a good example of something that's more effective. Although that's largely, again, more of a symbolic gesture in terms of the overall effect on the project. The other area that council could look at would be exempting a DCC area. We have to be sensitive about provincial requirements on that one. And so generally you do it in areas that are already developed and you're doing infill, like the Colwood Corners area or along Souk Road where it's largely developed, the services are in. You could create that as an exempt zone for DCCs, but it's always a bit of a challenge because you do have to get provincial approval, so you have to put a very strong case forward. So those are the options.
Thank you. Just one further question, Your Worship, to staff. And you said the fees were comparable within the region. So in terms of the West Shore region, how do these increases compare to other municipalities on the West Shore?
Through you, Your Worship, if you look at the Appendix 2, I believe that's attached to your report that shows the fees for other municipalities. If you have that in front of you. So, for example, in the report on page 8 of 12, I've outlined some just illustrative examples of what the increase in fees may be. So if you look at example 1 for rezoning, the proposed fees would be $6,200. And as compared to a fees that you would pay in Langford, for example, would be about $8,000, including public hearing. So it's still in the ballpark, so to speak.
That table you were referring to is page 25 of the 26-page report. So it's down at the end, actually following the previous report. Did that, yeah, when it won't, you got to turn sideways to get.
Just turn your head sideways. Yeah. You're thinking on the desk.
It's shaking the crumbs out at the same time.
Any further question from that on the table? You're good?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm got to scoot back. So the recommendation, and I just want to ensure staff that I'm reading from the right point of our agenda, is on page 10 and 11 of the new report that's in this agenda. I'm getting head nods from one. I just want to make sure our director's also on the same page.
That is correct.
Okay, so council, if you can orient yourself to those pages, and then I need a recommendation. It is very lengthy with a lot of numbers and information, so.
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Seconder? Any? Second? Any further questions, comments?
Thank you.
Councilor Martin?
How common or uncommon or realistic is reviewing the fees every 5 years versus every 3 years or whatever? Like, what's the common practice with municipalities?
My experience has been that it gets reviewed generally in response to changes in costs or concerns from the community, and there's not necessarily an automatic review. I think that the important thing is that there is an expectation now from council that it's reviewed on an ongoing basis, whether it's 2 or 3 or 5 years, so that we're not in a position, 15 years out from today, looking at major increases again. So.
Yeah, follow up.
The reason I'm asking, or the follow-up to that, is there any chance of, instead of reviewing it every we could still review it every 5 years, but I'm just thinking about rate of inflation. Could we not just increase the fees every year based on the rate of inflation, so that the fees are actually, we're not 2 years down the road actually receiving less money than what we are now because of inflation? Like, it would seem that would be a standard thing that you would just sort of build in, so that you're covering your costs, because your costs are going up every year.
Yeah, Your Worship, it's certainly an option. We could do that. We could bring fees and charges, all of our fees and charges bylaws forward every year for inflationary effects, but it is still a bylaw amendment. You have to change the numbers on the schedules
On every year.
bylaws.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Question to staff. It says in here that the review would be undertaken every 5 years, starting from January this year. When does this whole new fee schedule come into effect?
Your Worship, this fee schedule, we've internally planned for it to take effect halfway through this year, assuming that we get through the normal bylaw readings that would need to take place over the next couple of months.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Day?
Just that the recommendation doesn't speak to the review time frame. It just refers to drafting the bylaw. So perhaps when staff bring... Oh, does it?
Yeah. What page are you on?
I was on page 6.
No, page
No.
10
Page 10.
and 11 of the 26-page report. You go the other numbers?
Okay.
Can't get it pop this out its old number.
Different.
I just want,
Yeah, because I would be, I don't want to make it onerous for staff to review the fees, but certainly from 1998 to now has definitely been too long. And probably 5 years is too long, because we may forget. When councils change, we tend to forget about those things. So I'd like to see it, I don't know what the best option is, every year or every other year.
Your Worship, just to clarify that we're proposing that the review be built into the bylaw itself, so that anyone that took a look at the bylaw would be reminded of the requirement to review.
anything further?
So I guessing that you need to know what that number is right now then, in order to draft the bylaw. So just can we get any feedback from staff in terms of, is it very onerous to review those fees every 2 years?
I would submit, I guess, that the cost associated with review every 2 years would probably outweigh the incremental benefit, as opposed to it being every 5 years. But that would all depend on what the inflation rate is and whatnot.
So the recommendation, do I have, you're on the right
I have
page?
it now. It's that the fee review be every 5 years from January 2016.
And we have mover and seconder on that already, so calling the question, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving then, folks, into Transportation and Public Infrastructure 6.3.1. Recommendation coming out of the Age-Friendly Community Plan. Councillor Nault?
Yes, at the last Transportation and Public Infrastructure Committee meeting, we reviewed the age-friendly community plan. There were some questions as to why it was before transportation, and specifically a lot of the recommendations have nothing to do with the mandate of transportation and public infrastructure. However, the plan covers a large area from public transit, affordable housing, health services, none of which the city really even has any control over. The important thing is that the city does have control over some of the recommendations in there, such as sidewalk improvements and connectivity of sidewalks between areas of the city, resource center for the aging community. We suggested we might cooperate with the library on that. And recreation, of course, Juan de Fuca Senior Center carries a lot of recreation for our seniors, and accessibility issues also come into the play. Overall, the recommendation that we put forward was that the council give approval to the age-friendly community plan, and direct staff to consider the objectives and strategies in the age-friendly community plan in every community improvement undertaken, and direct staff to prepare a resolution for the city of Colwood to demonstrate a civic and corporate commitment toward Colwood becoming age-friendly, an age-friendly community, and bring back to council for approval, including monitoring and assessing progress in advancing this commitment. At Part 4, we direct staff to revisit the age-friendly community plan in 2017 to review what progress has been made and what action items could be added to staff priority. And finally, that council consider creating an age-friendly community committee. And I would so move.
Thank you. Seconder? Discussion? Councillor Day?
Thanks. I attended a couple of the age-friendly sessions, and it certainly there was a lot of new information for me, even though I've been working with the Disabilities Advisory Committee for quite some time, and the needs and concerns are quite similar at times, but there was an awful lot to be taken in and a lot that we could do. So I certainly support any age-friendly initiatives, and it is quite interesting how you perceive old people and how we are all rapidly becoming older people. And anyways, it was very interesting. And just a suggestion that perhaps when we consider creating an age-friendly committee, perhaps we can incorporate that into another committee, such as IACTI or another.
Any other comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 6.3.2, recommendation, request for replacement of 4 oversized signs on city property for Royal Bay Development. Recommendation, Councillor Nault?
Yes, the committee reviewed the application, and as we heard in public participation, the applicant feels they're more identification markers than advertising signs. However, committee believed them to be advertising signs, and they are going to be on city property. Since the entire bylaw is under review, committee felt it would be more prudent to table this until such time as the bylaw had been reviewed and enacted and adopted by council. The bylaw review will have a public process in it, and I would really like to hear what public opinion is after the kerfuffle we had a short time ago over sandwich board signs. So the recommendation to council, and I would so move, that the right-of-way application to place 4 oversized signs on city property be tabled until such time as the sign bylaw number 1134 has been reviewed and adopted by council.
I need a seconder. Councillor Day?
And just, I'm just wondering when is the sign bylaw expected to be back at the table?
There's a report coming to the next Transportation Public Infrastructure meeting, which is the beginning of next month, and then depending on the decisions made in that committee meeting and the following council meeting, we may be able to prepare the revised bylaw fairly quickly. But in any case, it'll be May before the bylaw can be adopted at the earliest.
So I'm sort of assuming, though, that if we have, we would be able to have public input on our sign bylaw within a month or so, a month, 6 weeks, something like that? Is that what I heard you say?
Depends what depth of public input the committee and council direct.
Thank you. I opposed the recommendation at committee, and I will still oppose it. Several things. Number one, the sign itself, in my opinion, is not a sales sign. It's a community marker, and the community marker did work in conjunction with our communications person to have some symmetry with the Welcome to Colwood sign as you enter Colwood. I think these are signs that, from an economic development standpoint, we have already spoken about around wayfinding signage, and this would be costs that the city would normally incur anyways to have an identifier of a specific community within the city of Colwood. I think the signs are gorgeous. If you notice that the signs also do say the city of Colwood and actually have the logo on it, and I've been assured that they will not be anything along the lines of 60% sold and buy now and get a free Forester and all that type of thing. That they're actually really nice signs, and I'm very supportive of us actually moving forward and having Royal Bay continue to make that community a very identifiable area. So I will be opposing it, or the motion.
Councillor Logan and then Dave.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, Rob took the words right out of my mouth. I will be opposing the motion as well. I'm supportive of moving the signs forward. The quality of these signs is exactly what the city ought to be striving for. And in fact, the type of sign is something that the city ought to be striving for in every community. It's a sense of place, wayfinding. It's attractive, and it's in the community. It's not like these signs are going to be placed at Colwo Corner advertising a development that's 5 kilometers away. This is identifying the entrance into a brand new, beautiful community that the developer and we should celebrate. And I think some credit needs to be given to the developer in working with the city to help brand ourselves as well as the development, and making sure that we're included in having some input in the type of signage. So this is something we should be encouraging, and I think if notwithstanding the sign bylaw is going to be reviewed, May is at the earliest. I bet you things come up and it will be probably delayed. But this is something we should be encouraging, not discouraging. And I hope we don't put this off, because I think it doesn't send the right message, and I think the staff recommendation was bang on right off the bat. So again, I won't be supporting the motion to table. I will support the motion to approve the signage moving forward. Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thanks. I'm just curious, in reviewing the materials, I didn't see, maybe, and it could be me, because it's been a busy day, but I didn't see where the sign specifically would be placed, or whether or not we have control over that. So I was just wondering. Were there maps
In the original report, I believe.
Okay. I just missed it then. That would be awesome.
Any further questions?
No,
Or
I'll just
answer?
get that
Okay.
answered.
Councillor Chong?
Thank you, through your worship. I'm going to have to agree on the benefits of signs. I think they're very attractive, and I think they more or less look what our City of Colwood signs look like. My only concern is the brightness, which I'm sure staff will address. Sorry, I had another point, now it slips. There is labeling on the maps that were provided. They're not in this report, but the report that went to Transportation and Public Infrastructure Committee, there it is. It's labeled 1 through 7. So I'm just wondering if the 4 signs that we would be approving today, would they be 1, 2, 3, and 4?
or your chair. I just happened to ask the question earlier today, so I know the answer. Because I was looking into it. My understanding is it's actually 2, 3, 4, and 7. And 4 is a smaller sign, and then 7 will be the larger sign that is the same size as 2 and 3. And my understanding is 1, 5, and 6 are just placeholders. That they're probably actually nothing's going to occur at 1, 5, and 6.
Councillor Knoll?
To me, it is still an advertising sign. The large signs are going to be 17 feet tall, if the report is correct. That's a pretty big wayfinding sign. Far larger than is required, and my feeling is if a developer wants to advertise his development, he can put the signs on his property and pay Colwood business sign applications and rates.
Yeah. And I heard you mention lighting on the signs. Are these lit signs then, or are they just the standard? I didn't find anything that said it was lit.
Right.
Ben?
Ben Mycroft. So just a couple points of correction. The large signs are 12 feet tall. There's a person there for scale, and the reason being is when you're driving by in a car at 50 kilometers an hour, it needs to be substantial enough to be seen. We are proposing lighting them, but they're not illuminated in that there's backlighting. What we're proposing is basically just a projection light, like a fairly low-key projection light, so that you can sort of see them in a nice, tasteful way, but in no way would be garish or bright or overwhelming at all. And just back to the comment to clarify the locations, the intent is to have these large "Welcome to Royal Bay" and "Thank you for visiting Royal Bay" signs at location 2, 3, and 7. And location 4, because we look at Latoria Road coming off of Wishart or Latoria as being our main entrance, we're going to be doing additional beautification, improvement of fencing, replacement, and kind of cleaning up. It's just a smaller marker sign to kind of get your attention that you're coming into Royal Bay, and then you kind of go to the hill, you see the view, and there'll be a larger "Welcome to Royal Bay" sign at that location. So that's the reason for the extra sign at position 4.
Any questions arising, folks?
Although I do support the signs, I just think having a big block is not as attractive as maybe having a symbol. Like I saw that you have a ship there, so it'd be much more attractive if you just kind of cut it out and had just the ship, because I guess it is a big square.
Right. Yeah, we've kind of gone out to a well-renowned sign designer, and we sort of gave him instructions that we wanted it to be tasteful and understated, and in no way come across as being an advertisement. And this is our new branding, so that matches up to the logos and the sailing, the sail and the Royal Bay text are our kind of brand identity, and the color is a royal blue color, which is also sort of tying into our brand identity. So that's the reason for why we went that way.
Ben, that's a really windy location along that. How are you mitigating perhaps the cause and effect of wind on that size of a sail?
Right. We are aware of the wind across the Chosen Road in particular, and so for that reason we've had our civil engineer, Associated Engineering. They're working on producing engineered foundation drawings for us, just to make sure that we've got a professional engineer who can put their stamp on them and guarantee their safety. So that is something that's been considered, and we are designing for that.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Day?
I'm just curious to why it's in the road right away instead of on your own property.
Good question. I mean, we wouldn't have to come to council if it was on private property. I don't chosen road, the road right away, if you're familiar with where the fence line runs, to get on our own property falls off a cliff. So in all three of these locations, essentially to achieve adequate visibility to accomplish the purpose of seeing them, they need to be in the road right away, unfortunately. Just because of the geography in those locations, it's just not possible for us to accomplish what we're trying to do, which is just kind of let people know that you're coming to road A if it was on private property, although we did initially attempt to go that route. We just were not able to accomplish it.
Follow?
And just one follow-up question to our engineer. We've just gone through completing our transportation master plan. And is there any, I would imagine there could potentially be a conflict between road improvements and the location of the signs. So I'm just wondering, are we covered in, we could say yes for now, and then if we need that road right of way to do our road works, you'll have to remove the sign, find an alternate location, et cetera, et cetera. Is that achievable?
Currently, we only accept applications for 1 year, and then it has to be renewed every year. And implicit in that renewal is the fact that we can turn it down. And I'm sure that we would get enough notice of any improvements intended by the developer or by ourselves to deal with that.
Anyone else? You asked my question, so we're good. With that, call the question. All those in favor of the recommendation before us? Opposed? Recommendation fails. In order for us to move forward, we need to consider something. Councillor Day or Logan? Councillor Day?
I would recommend that we approve the installation of the signs for 1 year with subsequent applications.
Seconder?
May I just make it friendly amendment?
And that would be?
Well, it's just that there is a recommendation actually, which has this funny wording in it with the actual request number and everything else. May I just make the recommendation that what the staff recommendation was in the TPI
previous
meeting, that we just move that? That's how Cynthia sees it.
Yeah, I'm just, that's that the city approved the application ROWA 2016-18 for Silverside city property on Machosen and Latour roads as shown on attachment number 2, but it doesn't give a time frame.
Oh, so you're just adding the time frame.
Just
Got it.
adding the 1 year
Yeah,
review
no,
of
then
1 year.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion then on that as amended to the previous recommendation and 1 year review? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion does carry. We will move on then, folks, to item 6.3.3, city engineer options for proceeding with sewer treatment.
Your worship, I'll just start the introduction, and our city engineer might want to jump in. As council's aware, this has been a very, I'm going to use the term fluid process that we've all struggled with trying to keep up with. It's as quick as our city engineer has written a report, the direction from the CRD has changed. And so we've made multiple attempts to bring a report to council, and every time we were prepared to, the change in direction was so dramatic that we held the report back. And I think we were very close to doing that again with this, all of the events that occurred last week. But the report outlines very effectively what Colwood has gone through over the past several years. And given the directions that occurred last week, we had the West Side Select Committee meet last week and resolve to recommend to CORE that a West Side only solution be pursued with Colwood, Langford, Esquimalt, and View Royal. And then we went into a core meeting the following day and watched core work through a recommendation from staff to move towards two-plant solution at Clover and McLaughlin. And McLaughlin would, of course, service the West Side communities. So given all of the events that occurred last week, including the minister announcing that the ministry was going to step in and assist our communities in trying to resolve this issue, we felt that the report should go forward to help council understand the challenges that we've gone through, but staff are asking that council continue to work with the region at this point in time, given the events that occurred last week, and work through this process of McLaughlin and Clover and the facilitation that the ministry is going to bring forward. And in the meantime, we'll continue to work with the region in better defining how the costs are going to impact Colwood specifically, and try and make amendments through their processes to reduce those costs to the residents of Colwood.
Anything further to add, Michael?
All I'd say is that the report gives you two pieces of information really that are still useful to bear in mind as we go forward. Most of page 2 deals with the difficulties really that urban systems had with these cost estimates, given very little time and other circumstances. The cost estimates that you see referred to in relation to the different solutions are very approximate and only comparable with each other in a very general sense. And I would suggest a letter written by Mr. David Stocks into the TC was quite accurate in saying that although the numbers are given to at least 3 significant figures, as I remember, they cannot be accurate to 3 significant figures. And in some cases, the difference between 2 options is well within the possible error in the estimate, which urban systems themselves have said is up to 45%. And then the other thing is just the options that you have in front of you at any time. We're recommending carrying on working with West Side, but those options can be borne in mind, as we go forward in the future. And council can always pick up any of those options as they wish.
Any further questions from Councillor Day?
Thank you. On page 3 of 7, under financial considerations, the second paragraph, there's just a term that I'm not familiar with. The work done in 2014 and 2015 has provided preliminary information for an EIS, which I don't know what that means.
Sorry, I should have spelled that out. Environmental impact statement.
Okay.
Any other further asks? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I have several. I guess I'll ask through staff first, and then look for input from council as well. Looking at the recommendation, if we were to move the recommendation today, where does Colwood pursuing its own sewer plant fit within those 2? For example, 2 is pursue a west side only solution. Does a west side only solution include all the west side communities, or is one of those options within the west side option Colwood doing it on their own?
Your worship. Right now, these are, I would call, cascading motions. So the first motion is to work with CRD on the Clover Point, McLaughlin Point. That would include a plant potentially in Colwood at some point, I'd say in the long-term future, to address future growth in this region. It could be 30, 40 years out, but we don't know at this point. If that failed, we would default to the next layer, which was the West Side motion that was made on March 8th, which was a West Side only solution that included the 4 communities. That could be in Colwood, it could also be in Esquimalt or anywhere in between. So it's not specifically to Colwood in that particular case. The third option is in the event that both the West Side Committee's efforts and the Core Committee's efforts fail, we would potentially take a more drastic approach that we outline in the report, such as potentially going through a service review and withdrawal process, which could result more specifically in a Colwood plant.
Two follow-up questions on that. So it is not, what you've just said is not actually in the recommendation, because the recommendation only goes up to the pursuing up to the West Side. Which is fine. I mean, Council, we haven't moved any motion as of yet. My second question to you is, at what point do we begin to build a Colwood-only solution into our 5-year plan? And because 5 years from now, we're going to have some sort of sewer in place. So I would like to understand, when do we actually start doing that budgeting?
Your Worship, so under the first 2 recommendations, it would not be built into the 5-year plan. It'd be beyond. If there was a future site in Colwood, I would hesitate to say that under option 1, it would still be a regional district project. Under option 3, or the recommendation number 3, I've jumped the gun. What we would be doing is bringing back this report essentially with a different set of recommendations. And that's where we would be contemplating putting in an amount into a 5-year plan. We would be requesting funding from Council to undertake engineering studies, funds to start a liquid waste management plan. So there'd be a whole series of additional recommendations that would come back. So if we get to recommendation number 3, we'd be reporting back to Council on the ramifications of each decision that would be before Council.
Happy with that? Yep. Anything further?
I'll wait.
So I need a mover and seconder for the recommendation that is before us.
I move the recommendation.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Any further discussion from members of council? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee, 6.4.1, recommendation Native Plant Salvage Program. Recommendation, Councillor Chung.
Thank you. At our last Parks meeting, we had a presentation by Carol Brown. She was representing Friends of Havenwood Park that would be solely responsible for the Native Plant Salvage Program. The purpose of the program is to go onto development lands before they are excavated, and this is to save native plants that would otherwise be destroyed. And the program also requests that the volunteers are trained, and that would be done by HAT, and they would be providing the funds for that. And they would also have to sign a waiver to release the city from any liabilities. And the Parks Foreman has expressed that there is an interest and or a need for the plants, and it would actually save the city money because we wouldn't have to be buying plants for our boulevards, for example. And the volunteers have offered to drive the plants directly to the public works. And there is a recommendation, and I would so move that Council endorse the Native Plant Salvage Program as outlined in the February 17th, 2016 report to the Special Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Following up again, Councillor Chung, 6.4.2, recommendation Perimeter Park 3 on Latoria Boulevard.
Thank you. As part of the capital assessment replacement plan, it is required for our parks to be named because of our facilities and our lands. It is also a risk not having them named because if any emergencies happen, people don't know where they are or how to describe it. And if there's any problems with our parks, well, it's hard to say what the problem is when you don't know where you are. So we have before us Perimeter Park 3, which is not formally named, and staff did come up with a few suggestions, including Murray's Pond Park, Producers Pit Park, Latoria Ridge Park, and Royal Bay Ridge Park. Originally, Sandra proposed Royal Bay Ridge Park, which we thought was great, but a lot of the things in the Royal Bay area are followed with Royal Bay. And because the park is closely located by Murray's Pond Park, with the future opportunity to expand if a piece of land becomes a park in the future, we thought it would be, one, more distinguished, and two, more distinguished if it was labeled Murray's Pond Park. And so there is a recommendation that it be recommended to council that, one, the park on Latoria Boulevard be formally named Murray's Pond Park, and two, an information sign with a schematic map of the park be installed at each of the 6 entrances to the park at a total cost of $1,800 with funding from the park sign budget.
Discussion? Councillor Logan?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our Manager of Communications. Is there a standard for the sign based on our new logo and stuff?
We do have a draft standard. We haven't applied it yet to parks. It'll have to go through the Parks Committee and then it will come to council, but we have something in the works, yep.
Thank you.
Any further? Councillor Day?
Sorry, I was just having trouble reading the map. I thought it sounded very reasonable, but it is next to Murray's Pond. Is that correct?
That's correct. So I guess, can we pull up the picture? It's directly... Yeah, is that possible?
It was pretty dark.
So you can see that it's the strip behind Royal Bay High School, but there's also a piece of land that could potentially become a park as well. And that is right beside Murray's Pond Park. So there is the ability to combine those two pieces of land, and it would, in total, be Murray's Pond Park.
But it is currently contiguous with the land around Murray's Pond?
Yes.
Pond? Yeah. I can't see any. I can see Perimeter Park 3. I can't see anything else on that map.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a big deal, but
Is it in the
I
parks?
think-
yeah.
It's in the parks.
Oh,
And
sorry,
not
yeah.
Not,
There's a link, hyperlink.
Is there?
oh, well, yeah, no hyperlink in paper. Well, while they're doing that, can I ask a question?
Yep.
And this is to anybody. I don't know the history of Murray's Pond, like where the name comes from. Who is, yeah.
Councillor
I figured
Day.
Councillor Day probably would know the answer to that.
It's a old Colwood family, and in fact, one of the members of the family was on our Heritage Commission up until a couple of years ago.
So it's a long-term name, like it's a
Yeah,
it's a
pioneer
history
family.
or a
Yep.
historic name. Okay, good. The suggestions.
Is
You
that the
want this?
Murray's Pond has not been dedicated as a park yet.
right?
When it is, it will all be one contiguous park, hence the name.
Oh, okay, I see.
And I have a better picture if you want to see. Okay.
Any further questions? So we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into finance, 6.5, 6.5.1. New item, City of Colwood miscellaneous fees and charges bylaw. Moving in. Who's?
I can do it.
You're going to? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Recently, we were made aware of some revisions that are required to the miscellaneous fees and charges bylaw in order to collect fees for specific police services. In reviewing the current miscellaneous fees and charges bylaw, it was noted that the bylaw is quite dated and need a revision. Review of bylaws is one of the strategic priorities that were identified in 2015. Attached to the report you have is Appendix A, which is the existing bylaw. Appendix B is the draft bylaw. And it also includes 4 schedules that have been created that will form part of bylaw 1603. Schedule A is fees for administrative services. Schedule B is fees for police services. C, bylaws provided for residents and Colwood community associations. And Schedule D, St. John the Baptist Heritage Church and Family, or Emery Family Hall. Sorry. I don't often have to get doing this when I'm doing the minutes too. So the Schedule A, I also created, that's attached to the report, how all the fees were determined, which it's not included within there, but if any of you had any questions on it, I could provide you some feedback. I looked at some surrounding municipalities to get those fees, and they're all in sync. So what we're looking for is to forward bylaw 1603 to be enacted. And if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Councillor Martin?
Thank you. In addition to providing it on CD, can we just provide it on a memory stick to them? Like, is that too costly to us? Like, I'm assuming a CD would cost us as much as just giving them a memory stick with it, right?
Do they exist?
CDs? I don't know. I'm surprised we have a burner.
Yeah, we actually, we do have CDs available, but I have had residents that have brought memory sticks on, and if it's simple information, we just provide that to them. It takes 2 seconds to put it on.
Oh, we don't even charge them? Okay.
I did that today.
Any other questions? Staff?
I just wanted to mention that the report and the draft bylaw and all the research on the fees and charges was actually a project that was undertaken by Marcy Lalonde. She's just finishing her local government management professional certificate program. She graduates in June. So this was actually one of her homework projects. So she had to do it very quickly and kind of wrap it up in a nutshell because your homework timeline is very short. But she talked to all of the staff, she did all of the research, she consulted with other municipalities and came up with what she, myself, and others feel are fair costs for today's times. So,
thank you. Thank you, thank you. Councillor Day?
I will move the recommendation.
Second.
Any further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 6.
I was going to tease you guys and say I've registered in case anybody wants to get me a gift for graduation. I'm just joking.
That's hysterical. Mental note.
Yeah. Get that gavel out.
Boom, boom, boom.
I'm just teasing.
6.5.2, request for consent to adopt a bylaw that amends CRD bylaw number 3510, CRD bylaw number 4058, Capital Regional District Climate Action and Adaptation Service Establishment bylaw number 2008, amendment number 1, 2016.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report is a result of a correspondence we received from the Capital Regional District, and it is speaking to their climate action and adaptation services that they provide to a number of municipalities. So the service is a regional climate action coordination service. It includes monitoring, reporting on air quality, energy consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, collaboration, and cooperation with members on climate action and adaptation, and information dissemination and public education. It ties into a lot of the climate action initiatives taken on by the province. Everybody signed up in 2008, 2009. This specific request is for the city to approve for the CRD to adopt their amendment bylaw, which is going to change the maximum requisition that they can charge participating municipalities for the service. Effectively for the city of Colwood, that would result in about $3,000 a year. The change is very specific to Part 6, which has two mechanisms for what they're going to charge. They either have a maximum amount or a formula that they use that's based on a property tax rate. And they get to charge the higher of the two. So whatever the calculations are each year, when they figure it out, they get to charge the higher one. So what this bylaw is going to do is allow them to make those changes so that in the current year, they'll be able to charge the higher fees in order to build on their plans and their programs and continue to look for other grant sources as well. They do a lot of grant research as well. Councillor Cynthia Day is sitting on the steering committee for this group. I don't know if she has anything to add, but they cannot adopt this bylaw without the approval of 2/3 of the participating members, and they're looking for Colwood's approval.
Thank you. Councillor Day, anything further?
I could just add that they don't meet terribly often. They're quite stingy with their resources, which is a good thing. Despite the fact that there is a considerable increase in costs this year, not huge per taxpayer, but overall the requisition has gone up a good 15%, and that is largely to deal with, sadly, those things that we're all very aware of, which is provincial downloading. You know, they say you need to measure X, Y, and Z, and then they don't make that terribly easy for us to do. We spent a lot of time trying to meet provincial requirements and then trying to also evaluate what the province is actually requesting that we accomplish. And so I think there is good value. I think they have 1.5 FTE dedicated to this program.
Thank you. We have a recommendation here that we need to put on the table.
If you're happy to consider it, I'll move the recommendation.
Seconder for discussion?
Sorry, you're looking for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, sure, I'll second it. Sorry. I would love to second this.
With that,
I lost track of my job. Sorry.
Councillor Nault.
Yes.
That's right. Whatever Cynthia needs.
Through you to Councillor Day, I went through the whole report and the whole lovely little brochure and all the pretty pictures, but nowhere could I find a budget. They take money from us, but I have no idea what they have spent it on other than vague things like assist in this or facilitate that, or I was wondering if you have seen an accurate budget for the...
I have seen the actual budget, and I'm sorry I don't remember where I put it. It was about probably 6 months ago now that I saw it. And there is a meeting coming up, but we don't meet often. Twice a year is the meeting. So, but the monitoring, I'm trying to remember what the program was that they were working on. But anyways, the requisition is pretty much based on staff time apportionment, and that's pretty much the the big financial contribution is to pay for the staff time to do the work.
Thank you. I would appreciate seeing that when you come across it.
Councillor Chong?
Thank you. I know Michael just left, but maybe Cynthia can answer this. I'm just looking in the participating areas section, which is page 2 of the report. It says it includes, I guess the actions in the group includes monitoring and reporting on air quality, energy consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, and then cooperation. So I'm wondering if there's anything that really sticks out that we don't already do, because I feel like we do a lot of those things.
They have done a lot of work on the climate adaptation issues, so they've had a lot to do with the climate modeling for sea level rise. They've had a lot, so they provide a lot of the baseline data that we would rely on to compare anything to is provided by them.
Anything else from anyone? Called question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
The recommendation in the report is asking council to either give consent to or oppose adoption of, so we just need clarification of consent to or...
we were putting it forward consent to.
Consent to, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sorry, I should have been clearer.
6.5.3, recommendations referred from the special committee of the whole. As this had been before council, it's back before us now. Who's handling finance? So there's 2 motions that are before us. Councillor Day, maybe your name is attached
Your Worship,
to that.
perhaps I could just give a quick intro. This was discussed at I believe it was either a special committee of the whole budget meeting, but it was just to address grants and aid. And that was the results of that grants and aid discussion was recommended to council some time ago, and council referred it back to the budget process. So we've been through the review of the special projects and capital, and we've had a review of our core services, and there is still a need, and we brought this back to budget, and we had a bit of a discussion at the committee of the whole meeting about I'm going to say the expectation of the applicants to receive the funds that they believed had been approved through the committee process. So we've brought it back to council again, hoping that council can authorize this essentially a early approval for this particular budget item.
Councillor Day?
Thank you. So by making the motions that were made at the committee of the whole, we would be granting early approval so that the grants could be distributed to the community organizations?
That's correct.
Okay. Just before you move it, because I have a question to our Director of Finance. If you look at that recommendation that's on the last page, 8 of 8, we recommended to council that the grants and aid budget be set at 27.6 and that 2,700 be held back to allow for any additional applications. But we also added IACD in at a late. Does that $1,200 from IACD come out of the 27?
No, that, Your Worship, that is in addition, which is what we did last year. It's an additional item on top of the 27.6. It's exactly what we did last year.
12. I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure that I missed that second meeting, so I wanted to make sure we had the right numbers in the recommendation that didn't cause confusion going forward. That's all.
Yeah, actually, in my package, I had highlighted that motion for IACTI because I was going to make it as well. And then I was thinking there's actually 3 motions, but the last one is it's got the previous one in it for to set the budget at 27.6. So I would move that it be recommended to council that the 2016 grant and aid budget be set at 27,600 and that $2,700 be held back to allow for any additional applications and dispersed as follows as is written in the report. And also, let me get back up to my spot, that $1,200 be awarded to IACTI in addition to the proposed budget.
Just want to be clear. So I need a seconder on that motion, folks? Discussion? Counselor Nault?
Yes, once again, I'm against pre-approving amounts. We have given instructions to staff to come back to us with a somewhat reduced budget over what we originally looked at. I believe it was a 3.5% tax increase down from a 3.9. I have no idea where those cuts are being made. This reflects my frustration with approving a budget in May for a fiscal year that starts in January. No fault to staff on that, but 4 terms on council, and I've always been that way. I find it very frustrating. I'm sure the people waiting for the money find it frustrating. I know Public Works finds it frustrating because you can't start major projects until the funding is in place. So I won't be supporting this until I actually see the final budget and council vote on it.
Okay, Councillor Chong?
And with that, I appreciate what Councillor Nault says, and I'm just wondering, because I acknowledge that we do have to make cuts, that if maybe we could just cut out the 2,700, and maybe that would help for the cuts. I mean, we do have a deadline for these sorts of applications.
Councillor Day?
I would, I think that the cuts that we may need to make are probably not in this area. And I mean, the $2,700 is not going to be spent. It's there. And not every year, but one year we definitely had a worthy proposal that came forward that we were very glad that we had, you know, something kind of tucked away that wasn't allotted to something else. We have a big budget to consider, so I think if we're going to amend the figures, we should probably do that when we're looking at the whole budget. And if we're, you know, I could go either way in terms of early approval. I think these are great volunteer organizations, but I'm sure they don't need the money right this month in order to survive. So I could be wrong, but I haven't been petitioned by anybody saying, could you hurry up? Staff?
Your Worship, this particular discussion happens in just about every municipality in the province. Grants and aid generally come out early in the year, and budgets don't get adopted until often in May with most councils. And I think I'd have to say that most staff recommendations are, if you're contemplating cutting grant and aid budgets, do it in the next year. So I think it's, from our perspective, I think it's important to advise the community a year in advance that grant and aid budgets are going to terminate. And so if you're considering cutting a grant and aid budget, consider it in 2017 or 2018 and advise them today or, you know, between now and May 15th that that's going to happen. If they came to make presentations in January, it was with the understanding that there was money available. They didn't guarantee that they were going to get it. It was still an application process, but they believed that there was a budget of $27,600 available for them to apply for, and through the committee process, they believed that they were going to get those funds, and they've probably started the planning for their initiatives and activities for the year based on receiving those funds. So from a staff recommendation perspective, I think it's we would say that is a priority amount of funds in the budget now, and that it would not be touchable, and we would not consider cutting that to try and meet a tax increase that council's directed us to look for. And we, I think, feel fairly strongly that we can find the funds to bring us down to 3.5 without any hardship or having to impact this budget.
Any further questions, comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into bylaw this evening, folks. 7.1, bylaw number 1598, third reading only.
Second.
All those in favor?
Discussion. You get discussion in
Yep, we can.
Through you two staff, there was a question at the last reading on this, and we were looking for clarification regarding the right-of-way and who would be responsible for moving the septic field if the city did request that the septic or that we were going to utilize the right-of-way. So could I just get a clarification on whose cost that would be?
Well, if the road is to be built through there, it'll be built with services such as sewers. This on the assumption that nobody would need the road unless they were developing, or nobody could afford to build the road unless they were developing at a density where sewers would be needed. And the tile field would be no great impediment to building the road, and it would be a simple matter of connecting the outflow from the house to the sewer.
Yeah, follow up.
Clarification.
Yep.
Sorry, what I don't understand, Michael, is so whose cost is that then? So this field's there, and we have a right of way to that.
Yep.
And now there's going to be a road, or theoretically. So who's paying to have that field removed? Is it the owner or is it the road builder?
Builds the road.
It's the road builder.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bylaw number 1603, first, second, and third readings. Miscellaneous fees and charges bylaw number 1603.
Move introduction.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Second? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Third?
Move third.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Bylaw number 1578, first, second, and third readings. Colwood Main Sewer Local Area Service bylaw.
Move introduction.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Third, please.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Bylaw number 1579, first, second, and third.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Second.
All the, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 7.5, bylaw number 1614, first, second, and third readings. City of Colwood subdivision and development bylaw number, or bylaw 1995 amendment number 54 for the Royal Bay CD1A
Move
and
introduction.
1.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Second.
Discussion, anybody? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And the final one before us this evening, folks, 1611, first, second, and third reading, City of Colwood Highway Naming Bylaw number 1611 for Royal Bay Phase 1A and 1B. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Move third. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Gordy?
We have release of the in-camera resolution that we had before. Yeah, there's just that one item. Looking for adjournment, folks. All those in favor?